How you doing, Andrew?
Technology is the funnest thing in the
Yeah.
world.
Hey, everybody. How you doing? Welcome to Drew Jay's Talk with Andrew Sorley, and I am Drew Dudley. It is awesome to be with you after 2 weeks. Andrew, my man, I was in Costa Rica. Thank you for your patience, and I'm looking forward to talking about what I missed because I binge watched the Jays in the last 36 hours. I watched, I think, 10 Blue Jays in 30 games.
I had a great couple weeks while you've been away. Drew. I've watched a ton of baseball. It's been a great couple of weeks for our Blue Jays of the Toronto region.
Well, man, we got some special guests coming on today. We always kick things off, though. It's my job to do the recap. So let's take a look back. We've been off now for since the last time we chatted was on a Sunday, right before the Jays took on the Athletics in their last game. So here's a quick recap of what the last 2 weeks have held. The Jays beat the Athletics 12-1 right after we last talked. So I'm hoping we see a repeat of that today with the Tigers. They then went into they took on the Giants, who were the hottest team in baseball at the time. I think they'd won 12 straight on the road and 5 straight overall. They dropped the first game 3-0, but that was a epic Kevin Gausman 3-hitter, including a major milestone we'll talk about. They won the next 2 games, one a Trevor Richards start, which I want to talk a little bit about Trevor Richards, taking 2 out of 3 from the Giants. Then there was Boston. And we'll talk a little bit about Boston because as much as the sky was falling, I think there's good things in the Red Sox series, but they dropped all 3 to the Red Sox before sweeping the White Sox and then beating the Tigers last night. That leaves them with a 7-4 record since we last talked. But in the little bit that I was catching in Costa Rica, I would have assumed that the Jays went like 0-10 while I was gone, given the way that some people were talking. But what were your initial impressions before we head to some of the special guests that I know are waiting patiently off screen for us?
Yeah, good week of baseball, good couple weeks of baseball, and what I would suggest to you is, I think I'll remind everyone that our top here is just point out good. We went into the Canada Day series, and a lot of people come out for the Canada Day series, and they get those nice red jerseys. Wasn't the best result in terms of the score, but as you said, those games were close. There was a lot. There was a lot that was could have gone either way with that Boston series. Um, yeah, let's get right into introducing our first. You know what, Drew? We've had Thomas as a guest, haven't we?
We
But we've
did,
actually got
Tom.
we've got a special guest, and I went to college with this fine, handsome gentleman. His name's not Drew, though. Are we okay with that? First of all.
We are because I think that he's got the look proper. As I now see us all 3 of us lined up on the screen, I realize
Yes, yes,
that
yes.
apparently we all have a certain look that we get attracted to when it comes to friends. But I guess we're bringing on. Why don't you introduce him formally, Andrew?
Yeah, yeah. So Brett Simpson, Brett and I went to college together, and he's since gone ahead and moved himself to the West Coast. So he's gonna be our British Columbia correspondent, I think, for the Drew Jays talk.
Well, welcome on, Brett.
uh,
Can you? Sorry, go ahead,
Welcome,
my
Brett.
friend.
I I can work with that in BC, Paradise, whatever you want to call it. Great to be here.
Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about how the Jays became a part of your life, my friend? I mean, that's the best place to start.
In the womb. In the womb for sure. Shockingly, I'm named after George Brett. We won't get too deep into that. But true story, my father has been a Blue Jays fan since day one, 1977. And pretty much from there, I was born in 1985. Not to give my whole life story, but the year that the Jays finally won the division in 1985. Obviously, it didn't work out in their way, but it was the start of something special 7 years later.
So you're
So
you're
pretty much from the womb, I was always a Blue Jays fan. I grew up in Ontario, so I grew up with the 90s Jays, the heyday.
so if you had to pick your five first ballot Blue Jay Hall of Famers in your own heart, I mean, it's a little different for everybody. I mean, I've had John McDonald on mine for God's sake. who are your historical, like, 5 Blue Jay first ballot Hall of Famers when it comes to your fandom?
Yeah, John McDonald, A for effort, definitely top five for effort. Talent wise, probably not. Craig Graybeck and John McDonald, similar players, worked hard. Yep, throwing that name out there. I have to say Alomar first, Halliday, Joe Carter, who may not be a Cooperstown guy, but hey, I mean, the home run of home runs. Everybody who was around then knows exactly where they were. Carlos Delgado, and I'm actually going to go a little bit modern with Jose Batista because of how much he meant to the team. Those 5. There's so many to pick from. I mean, my favorite as a little kid was Jimmy Key, but not quite as good as the other 5.
I got to ask you, did anyone notice I think it was last night, they were talking about, I forget, whatever pitcher was sent down, but he had a baby, I guess this was a couple of nights ago, right? He had a baby that was 3 months premature, and wishing only the best, because when they mentioned that, you could even hear the commentator go, oh my God, 12, 14 weeks early. But did you notice that one of the middle names was Batista? Has anybody checked and seen if there's a direct correlation there?
I bet there is. I just have a funny
Jay
feeling.
Jackson. Jay
Yeah.
Jackson's who you're talking about. Yeah.
Does anybody know if that has anything to do with Jose?
Don't know. It's a good
I
question.
don't know.
Well, I've never really asked this, Brett. Have you got a Blue Jay memory, like a Blue Jay moment that really sticks in your heads, or more than one? Because I'd love to ask Andrew as well, because we've
Yeah.
never actually talked about those individual Jay moments.
Yeah, I mean, the 2 big ones are the 2 home runs, Carter and Batista. One of my favorites still is the 2016 ALCS on the E4. I don't want to throw him under the bus, but a certain person that may have punched Batista in the face back in the day, then conceivably baseball karma at its finest, threw the ball away, and Josh Donaldson did the mad dash around third base. That thing was, I was not at the game. My father was at the game, and I was jealous. That was one of the few. I love Vancouver, but one of the things I miss about Toronto is seeing the games, and also in a pennant race or in a playoff game. That was just like I was screaming in my living room, like going crazy. Half my neighbors probably thought I was crazy.
Sorely, man. How about you? We've never dove into those individual Jay moments that defined our fandom.
Sure, and that is a tough question to answer because there's probably a lot. Like Brett, I remember being a kid and my mom got me a Roberto Clemente signed baseball, and then Stephen Brunt actually has a biography about Robbie Alomar called Second to None. So I got both the ball and the book, and I was probably under 10 years old. Don't remember exactly how old. So that would have been sort of the, but absolutely 92, 93 would have cemented the young 10, 11-year-old, and the strike really did rob, I'm going to say, a decade of baseball for me. Because I really took a decade off of the Blue Jays, coming back towards Roy Halladay. Roy was on the Jays for a couple of years before I knew who he was. I would have started to come back around Aaron Hill, Lyle Overbay. Henkin would have been on the mound, but just winding up his career.
Yeah, the mediocre era, where there were some really good players that came through there, but never really got, I think Halladay is one of the great examples there too, right? But I mean, one of my big Blue Jay moments is, and hey, I might have made it up in my head, but there was a Canada Day where Vernon Wells walked it off against the Yankees. And I mean, for me, like 92, hugging my dad, or not 92, 93, hugging my dad, I'd like headbutted him in the face because I jumped up on the couch and then went for the hug and just like smashed him right there. But I remember there was a Canada Day walk-off that, like, just in the middle of that era where there was nothing going on, and the John McDonald Father's Day home run. Since I lost my dad, that becomes a whole different thing, right?
Yeah, and there's so many others, right? Like Encarnacion walk-off against the O's. I was on the roof of ago, listening on AM/FM radio, Jerry Howarth on the mic. I heard the horn from the Rogers Center in real time with the radio broadcast. Because if you listen to AM radio on a physical device, not streamed, the broadcast is in exact real time. So I couldn't get tickets, but I was watching the game from 300 meters away. That still gives me goosebumps. It was 10:30, 11 p.m. at night. That was exciting. That's 2016. So thinking about that, there's so many fun things.
Hey, Brett, 2016 wild card. Sorry, my friends. 216 wild card. You were talking about that's a big moment for you. Do you guys think that that's way overshadowed by 2015? Because I got to be honest, the 2016 wild card was an epic baseball game. If it hadn't happened the year after the 2015 bat flip, like how do those two stack up to you, Brett? Because to me, it seems that game doesn't give enough love, or doesn't get enough love for being an epic Blue Jay moment.
Yeah, I mean that game was. I mean, it wasn't even the game; it was the one inning, and that time. This is going to make me sound like a non-baseball fan. I'll never forget when my sister, who does not watch baseball, is like, "Are you watching this game?" I was in the middle of one of the busiest months of my work career, and nobody was watching the game. And I'm like, "What's going on?" I was checking the score and all that, and it was a busy day. And then finally, my sister, in about the sixth inning, is like, "Are you watching this?" I'm like, "But I mean, I got to say it," and I've rewatched that game since then. That seventh inning was. I still think it's better. It was one of the greatest innings of baseball ever. I wouldn't even say greatest, but craziest. I mean, I put that up there with the '86 World Series in the 10th inning. It was just the emotions of up, down. Hey, let's get into a borderline brawl. Like that's up there. I honestly put that up there in the top 15 or top 20 sequences ever, from what I've seen. And I've watched a lot of baseball.
And this one didn't kill my dad because my father had a heart attack in the 1986 World Series just before Buckner let it go between his legs. My mom came up and was just like, "We have to go to the hospital. Don't worry, though." And I'm like a kid, so I was 9 years old, just focused on the game. Only later on that I found out my dad had his first heart attack, and ever since then, I've really had a problem with Bill Buckner. Like, forget all the other stuff, my friends. But Brett, man, you're our guest.
I don't blame Bill Buckner though. I blame the coach. He was playing on bum ankles. He was 37 years old, and he shouldn't have been out there. Like at Game 6 of the World Series, you got a guy who's got no legs or no ankles left. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, man. I was going to ask, what do you want to talk about to kick things off before we got ourselves some more specifics? But if I ask you, what over the last couple of weeks has really captured you about the Jays? We'll let you kick things off with what's got you most excited about where things are, or even if you want to just talk about the season.
Yeah. Honestly, the last couple weeks, and I've been watching, listening. I'm a big fan of baseball on the radio. Like today, I'm actually going. It's a gorgeous day in Vancouver. I often listen to the game because I don't have cable, so sometimes I can't even watch it because of blackouts and all that. But honestly, the last couple weeks, it isn't like everybody's down on them a little bit, but they're still hanging around. They're only 7 back. We're going into the All-Star break, and we're in a pretty good spot. Tampa's coming back to earth. Baltimore's coming back to earth. And it's the team effort. When Manoah was down, the rest of the team kind of rallied around each other, and it's everybody doing the little things. If it's Whit Merrifield, who should go to the home run derby after the last 2 days, obviously he won't. But it's the whole team, and I will say about last night's game, I was a little bit suspect about bringing Manoah up, but honestly, I trust Schneider. I trust Atkins with that because, hey, he showed up. They played the numbers a little bit. The Tigers are a pretty mediocre team, and that's probably a nice way of saying it on the offensive, but it's the whole team effort, and there's nobody. I mean, Vladdy, he's having a quote-unquote down year, and he's still hitting. Bichette just keeps hitting. Springer, he's hitting. Merrifield, he's hitting. Varsho, even though his numbers aren't great, he's coming out and playing hard every day. That's what I'm impressed by. And I mean, being the person who's seen those championship teams, hey, there's ups and downs. I mean, I've probably watched that, and you probably know this through this video a little too much. I wore out O Canada, the 1992 World Series. I wore out that VHS, and there were ups and downs. There were big streaks, and I mean, in that year they had a huge losing streak. They lost a bunch of players, but hey, they're sticking around. They're not playing bad baseball. They're playing mentally sound baseball for the most part. That's the biggest thing. They're doing the little stuff right. Are they flashy like last year or like 2016? No. And the thing is, flash doesn't win. If you do the little things right, it'll come together.
Yeah. Well, and to echo what you're saying, Brett, like Biggio is turning it on. Biggio is supposed to be our fill-in guy, really.
Yeah,
Brandon Belt.
he's been better.
Brandon Belt's coming along, right? We do have a lot to be excited about with our team. Drew, this week I'm excited about small ball. I'm excited about weak contact grounders. We had 7 infield hits in a row. Was it Friday night or Thursday night? One of those two. Thursday night. Thursday night against the Sox. In that, it was either the 8th or the 9th inning. I didn't write it down, but when the Jays start doing station to station, like my past softball opponents used to do to me, because I've been the White Sox in that scenario, and as soon as the guys stop really running and they're like going station to station because they feel bad for you, you know that we've got a pretty tidy win. So yeah, I was excited to see weak grounders and the guys running them out, and the call's going our way.
You guys worried about the home runs? I mean, it just seems that even as I'm watching that happen, as I'm watching cue ball after cue ball go up or down the line, you're just blue over it. And honestly, man, I felt bad for the White Sox at that particular point too, because these guys are putting massive swings on the ball and they're nubbing off the end. And you know how hard it must be to have 2 of those happen in a row. But it seemed like you said there was 4 or 5. You guys concerned about the home run thing? It seems to be a big topic, but as long as Vladdy and Bo are whapping the ball the opposite way, I don't like. That's one of the things I hated about those 15, 16 teams. I mean, don't get me wrong, I loved the teams, but it was like all or nothing. Are you guys worried? Because I think they were saying the other night the Jays are like 17th or something in the league in home runs. This is a different type of Jays. Are you worried that they need the long ball, or that Bichette and Guerrero should be hitting more of them?
Brett, you go
Not
first.
at all. Yeah, not at all. Like 15, 16, you're so right. They were always trying to swing for the fences, and that's not how you win long term. Yeah, you need the dinger at the appropriate time, the big hit at the appropriate time. This team has changed astronomically from last year, that now they're looking for the hit. It doesn't matter if I don't care if the ball goes 90 feet or 900 feet. Get the guy over, get the guy home. I mean, Vladdy, I'm not sure if it was last night's game or the doubleheader game, but he just hit a nubber and it got through. And that's all you need. And if you really watch Vladdy this year, like, he was swinging for the fences through the month of May and he couldn't hit a thing. But now somebody's taking him aside. I don't know if it's the hitting coach, Mattingly, I don't know, but get the hit. C-ball hit, the old saying of Cito Gaston, C-ball hit ball. I mean, none of those 2 teams that won, they could hit, purely hit. And yeah, the power came, but everybody thinks Joe Carter, he was like a 50 home run. He never hit 50 home runs. I think he hit 40 home runs once. But he would just take the ball, and Alomar same, Molitor the same, and Bichette. I mean, I love watching Bichette hit. Watching Bichette hit's masterful. He's going to end up with 210 hits this year.
What's he got? He's got 17 more than anyone else in the major leagues.
Yeah, I think he's at 120 or 122 now. I'm glad I picked him for my fantasy team because I was torn. I had Vladdy and Bichette, and I'm glad I picked Bichette. And that's a hard thing to say because Vladdy's got all the big stats, and Vladdy's having a decent year, but Bichette, watching Bichette hit, it's just like a clinic. I wish more, and also because the game has changed so much with the rule changes, you see these teams, Arizona, they're playing small ball. Tampa, they're playing small ball. Yeah, they're hitting home runs on the side of it, but you got to run, shoot, hit the double, hit the single, bunt once in a while. I mean, I love that bunting's back. I mean, that's the one thing Varsho, he's brought the bunt back into the game.
Andrew, what are your thoughts on the way the Jays are approaching at the plate?
It's identical to Brett. We talked about how they're running more. They're trying to go from first to third. They're being more aggressive on the base paths, and you know what? You're going to get thrown out every once in a while. Bo Bichette got thrown out at home this week, and people are like, you should never. No, the truth of the matter is that these guys are doing small ball, but they're being aggressive. And we hear people complain, they should have run that ball out. They were being lazy, right? So no, I'd rather our guys be aggressive, try to go from first to third, try to stretch a single into a double. I love that. For me, you're gonna get out a couple times, but for me that's effort. For me, care, and I love it. I'm here for it.
Put the numbers.
So I don't care.
Put the numbers aside. Sometimes you got to take a chance. You got to take the chances, and sometimes, hey, you're going to get thrown out. The Bichette play, I don't want to blame anybody, but I think the stop sign went up too late. As in, he tried to stop him, but then, and you could tell Bichette was like running hard, and he's like, "Am I supposed to stop?" Because he think he knew. It's like, oh, we can do this now. Because last year, they wouldn't have done that. They would have just been stationed, or they would have struck out or hit a pop up because somebody was trying to hit the ball 900 feet.
I like that baseball's a little different now because it's a numbers and aggregate game, right? And that's what Moneyball was all about. Is what are the numbers going to be over 162? But I guess what you see in the playoffs, and this happened with Oakland, is that baseball's a long game, but once you hit the playoffs, you need somebody who, yes, he hits a home run every 11 at bats, and that's amazing over a season. But I don't want a guy who strikes out 48% of the time up when the bases are loaded with 2 out in a crucial spot, right? And I think now that the extra running has made people let go of the stats a little bit. Like, yes, I know that the stolen base aggregate isn't necessarily the best thing to do, but in this moment, I need Kevin Kiermaier on second base. I'll admit it, that if you had to pick one thing that was bugging me about the Jays this year, and I'm going to be positive here because this is kind of really the one thing, other than the inconsistency of things syncing up, pitching and hitting, is I think that they've gotten nailed on the base paths on some sloppy things. And I feel at present that the number of sloppy outs has outweighed the number of extra runs that we've gotten. But I also think that our team is mostly under the age of 26. And I think that those mistakes they're making now, we're not going to see when they're 28, which I hope is still when this team is big time in contention. I just think that people running more often, like you said, get to first and then immediately get to second. I love it. I like steal the base every time.
Drew, we might be having our first disagreement.
Oh, go ahead.
So I guess I have to be the buffer.
Obviously, Brett, you could be Brett could be the judge. From my perspective, there will be a few sloppy. Okay, and you're probably going to bring up an example, and I'll be like, okay, fine. But still, even if the guy's running and he just gets thrown out. Maybe the catcher just has a quick throw right back to first base, and Vladdy took too wide of a term. I don't think that's sloppy. I think that's excitement. I think that's anyway. Switching gears for a second. We did have a couple milestones, and you talked about Kevin Gausman. Do you want to talk to us about a homer? Speaking of homers.
Well, yeah, I mean, George Springer. First of all, Gausman, it was 3,500 Ks, I believe, or did I have that number? No, it wasn't. 1,500. 1,500 Ks, which doesn't seem like a big deal because we're so used to seeing. But 1,500 Ks is like 10 years of pretty great pitching baseball, or 7 years. It's really hard to get 200 strikeouts, or it used to be. But 1,500 Ks is a big thing. But what I loved about Gausman is he had absolutely no idea that it happened. That was my favorite part of that whole thing. Is he's sort of like, why is everybody cheering? Did something happen? Sometimes at Rogers Center, the Raptors just hit a 3, and you can actually hear people explode. But I thought it was really cool that happened. But for me, the bigger milestone was the George Springer milestone, when he moved alone into second place for most leadoff home runs with a rocket on Canada Day. So I just wanted to take a half second, and I know we're going to do a little bit of a deeper dive into that, but I just want to ask you folks about George Springer before we bring on another guest. when they signed George Springer, a lot of baseball Jays fans were more excited than I was because I thought George was just a good player. I thought he wasn't upper echelon great because I hadn't watched him all the time. Before we talk a little bit more about the record, I'll start with Brett as our guest, my man. George Springer, has he been what you expected? And what are your thoughts on him as a member of the Jays thus far and where he is right now?
I absolutely love him. He's up and down. He's one of those guys, and there's something in sports, and it doesn't matter what sport it is. You cannot teach clutch. Period. The end. You either have it, and it's a mindset. Vernon Wells, an amazing player. If you look at his statistics back in the day, he was not clutch. He hit most of his home runs before the fifth inning. George Springer is one of those guys you need on a team. He could go 1 for 25 one week, and then he's going to hit a home run on Canada Day to really boost those guys. And solid defender. I love that he's in right field now. He's a good center fielder, but as we can see, hey, he's been a lot more healthy this year. When he got signed, I'm like, that's the guy. Because you can say what you want about the Astros in 2017, but he was one of those guys. He was on base. He hit those home runs. And he's one of those guys you need on the team. He's veteran. He's leadership. He doesn't talk much, and when he does talk, people listen. If it's in the media, and I'm sure in the clubhouse, obviously I'm not in the clubhouse, but I've loved Springer, even when he was in Houston, even on those quote-unquote scandalous teams. He was just one of those guys that if you're going to win, and I'm not trying to get ahead of myself, but if the Jays are going to win, he's going to be a big part of it. And he might go in the ALCS and hit 125 or 1 for 25, and then go to the World Series and hit 3 home runs and become the MVP. I love him, and he does everything right.
Well, he did hit his 1,500. Sorry, that was Gossman. He hit. Yeah. Was 40? I actually don't know. He's now leading Major League history. Excuse me. Can I start again, Drew?
You sure can, man.
George Springer is now second place in all-time leadoff home runs, and he trails one Toronto Blue Jay briefly, also an Oakland Athletic. Brett knows who this is. Drew, do you know who he's trailing?
Oh yeah, man. This is Ricky the Man Henderson.
Ricky the Man Henderson. So George could conceivably hit 50 more leadoff home runs, but or however many he needs, maybe 30. Can someone tell me the number? I don't know how many.
I think he's at this point. He's got to hit almost as many as he's hit so far in his career to catch Ricky Henderson, who did it for 20-some years, and I'm pretty sure is playing in the San Diego, California League right now. I'm certain he's leading off for like the South Sacramento Tumbleweeds right now.
And he still hits leadoff homers, even at 60 or 65.
Hey, man, Ricky Henderson's in great shape. Don't you forget how good shape Ricky Henderson's in. Yeah. But my friend, when we were talking about, I noticed when George hit the home run, he immediately started looking for the ball. I actually saw him looking over there and being like, can I get the ball? Can I get the ball? I saw him talking to the guy in the dugout, which I assume was them sort of sending an usher up. And so, Andrew, my understanding is that we've got a special feature for the first time ever on Drew Jays Talk. It is going to be your better half is going to take us a little bit deeply into a little bit more about what happens when something major in Major League Baseball happens. Gausman's 1,500 K, George Springer's moving into second place all time. I'm going to throw up on the screen, ladies and gentlemen, joining for the first time on camera is Emily Sorley. Andrew is her husband, not the other way around. She's not Andrew's wife. Andrew is her husband. Emily, I understand that you, like me, are what we like to refer to as a Office Ladies podcast junkie, and that you are going to go in with a bit of a deep dive this week into, and I love the name, The Authenticator. Why don't you tell us a little bit about The Authenticator? First of all, welcome to Drew Jays Talk, my friend.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Am I sounding okay?
You're sounding amazing.
Oh, that's great.
Emily, tell us about The Authenticator.
All right, so my deep dive for this episode is I was inspired when these big events happen. When you get the 1,500 strikeouts, when you're breaking major league records or nearly breaking major league records, the broadcasters kind of say, "Oh, there goes the ball to the authenticator," or whatever. Or the camera might just be following the ball boy, passing it off to someone sort of close to the bullpen or the dugout or something. So I was like, I want to know more, because I get distracted watching baseball, and I'm always like Googling things and just going down rabbit holes for stuff that's just, I don't know, I find interesting. Some people might consider it irrelevant, but this is where my brain goes. I'm like, I need to know about this. So I found out that there's authenticators at every game. Of every MLB game has at least 2, right? Every game, because I guess they're just sitting, waiting for something big to happen, right? Some history to be made. So every game has 2. When you get into the World Series, then they'll have 3 or 4, because the authenticators have to witness the event. It can't be hearsay. You can't run up to them with the ball later being like, "This is a ball that, whatever, Gosman this was his 1501 or something," right? Like, they have to see it. There's a chain of custody that goes like from the field. They both have to have their eyes on it, see it go to the authenticator for it to be official. And of course, I'm on MLB and all this stuff, because I'm thinking, wouldn't that be a really fun job to just sit at every single game and decide, like, make these history making decisions and be holding pieces of history. So I found out. That's what I found out about authenticators. They're all from a police background type of thing. So they have these like really strict procedural rules they follow, chain of custody, just like police officers do. And if anyone's interested in a career, according to Glassdoor, they make on average $43,000 US a year. So not a bad job to sit almost next to home plate and watch every game. And because I know you want to know more. You're like, "Emily, tell me more. This is so fascinating," right?
No, I'd also like to know where the link is to the job. But yes, continue to tell me how, when you sit next to the game, just hoping that, I don't know, 4 triple plays are going to happen in an inning, so you have to have 2 people there in case that happens.
Yes. Yeah, it has to be witnessed. It has to be eye-witnessed in order to get authenticated. So if you're ever trading or buying something, you can actually check to make sure it's not a knockoff or hasn't faked it. The hologram stickers they put on, the moment they get the item, they have these sheets of stickers. They put one on the item, they put one on a document, they're signing it, they're cross-checking, they're referencing. And once you have one of these items, you can actually go online. Drew's going to put the link up. It's just MLB.com, official information /authentication. And if you don't want to type all that out, you can go to MLB.com and go in the search bar and just Google or search in their authentication. And you can actually put in the serial number on the hologram sticker and see if your item is actually an authentic game-used item.
Oh, so like that way, if you're like at an auction or something, because I've always wondered that, like how. So are all the things that you see at silent auctions and everything too authenticated, or is it just stuff that was in the game?
No, if it came from a game and someone acquired it from auction, or they were given it and now they're reselling it on eBay or something like that, if you're at a swap meet and you see something, you should be able to go onto MLB.com and put the serial number in that shows up on that hologram sticker, and it will tell you if it's actually a registered authentic item. They have a record of every item that they've authenticated.
Very cool. What are you gonna tell about us next? Is this gonna be like a regular thing? You're gonna come on and learn stuff from you?
Yes. I also, like, my fast fact, my fun thing that I looked up about authenticating is because then I was like, baseball cards, baseballs, broken bats, jerseys, blah blah blah. Yeah, boring. I'm like, okay, what else? Like, what's the weirdest thing they've authenticated? So when stadiums are being pulled down, like the old Yankee Stadium, Busch Stadium, this kind of stuff, when they take the stadiums down, they sell off everything. Like, they sell seats, they sell crazy things. I saw one it's online right now for like $500. You can buy the hot tub from the visitor change rooms if you want a hot tub that's been used by baseball players. But one of the fun stories that's out there, and I think it's a bit more than facts, because different sites had different facts. But when they took apart the Busch Stadium, the authenticators went into the clubhouse and put those hologram stickers on everything, including the urinals. So they auctioned off the clubhouse urinals.
You can see them there. These are actual official Busch Stadium urinals, authenticated by a Major League Baseball authenticator.
Yeah. So they had to go in there and put stickers on used urinals. But they did sell at auction. There's a couple different numbers floating around online, but they sold at auction to a urologist who was also a big Cardinals fan, I guess. And he put them in his office, or there's discrepancies there, but he either put them in his office or took them home or something. But someone bought those urinals.
Emily, I appreciate the deep dive, and that was your first #1 deep dive, and I'm going to leave my 12-year-old humor right there on the ground for you. But I want to thank you very much for joining us on Drew Jay's Talk. It has been absolutely awesome to learn everything that we can about authenticity, or the authenticator. I thought it was actually a machine. It's actually a person. 2 per game. And anything that happens, look for the hologram. And I'm going to throw up on the notes for the show where you can check to see if whatever you bought is actually legit. So thank you very, very much for the little bit of deep dive. Are you going to come back and teach us more?
Sure, yeah, anytime.
I absolutely love it. Thank you so much, Emily. I'm going to come back and bring on our boy Brett again. Brett, as we head forward into this rest of the week, we're going to do Drew Jays Talk every 2 weeks. What are you expecting out of the Jays heading out of the All-Star break? Like, what are you looking at for the rest of this year? How do you feel about where the team is right now? Oh, sorry, my friend, I got you muted, brother. Fire away.
I want one of those Albert Pujols urinals, by the way. That's amazing. I knew the authentication program a little bit. I'm just looking it up online here, and it's fascinating. But to answer the question, I'm very excited to see what happens after the All-Star break, because not that any team is easy to beat, but going into this weekend, I think we need a sweep, and I think it's very possible. We've got Gausman, who's just about to start up, and Bassett on Sunday. Very winnable series, sweepable series. But then after the All-Star break, the schedule still is a lot of NL West, which I'm hoping, and as I said, Dalton Varsho has had, his stats haven't really been there, but anytime, and this hasn't changed even though there's interleague now, I find if somebody's changed a league and a division, they sort of slump when they first go, but I think Varsho is really going to turn it around, because they're playing the D-backs right after the All-Star break. They play the Dodgers, they play the Padres, who he's familiar with. I'm excited. Again, being for all the hubbub about the Jays being not that good, they're 49-40. They're going to be 9 or 10 games above 500 going into the All-Star breaks, 5, 6, maybe 8 games out, with a fairly good schedule going in July, and maybe they make a deal at the deadline. But I'm pretty excited. And hey, you don't have to win the division to make the playoffs. You got to remember that. They need to play a little bit better against the division, but I think one last thing. I think they're playing like 680 baseball outside of the division, which is exciting. Go ahead, Ray. That's all I wanted to finish up with.
Brett gave me an idea, and I wanted to see what you guys thought about it.
We just completely lost. Sorry, say that again, my friend. We just completely lost it right after you said he gave you a great idea.
Yeah, no, sorry. The internet seems like it's having a hard time over here. Apologies for that. Brett gave me a good idea, which is a last minute pickup at the deadline. What do you guys think about the return of the Stroh show?
I'm going to put it this way, my friends. I would absolutely lose my mind with happiness if Marcus Stroman was a Toronto Blue Jay again. I wanted Marcus Stroman to stay a Toronto Blue Jay. I think deep down he wanted to. The question is whether he's cool with that. But I think Stroman would be awesome. My only question is, and I mean, I don't know what you guys think, if Hyun-Jin Ryu comes back, and let's hope it, if Manoah, and we haven't even talked about this is for next time, if Manoah comes back as the pitcher he can be, where's room for Stroman? You know what I mean? Like, there just really isn't room for the guy. The nice thing that I like about this second half of the season is with Chad Green and Hyun-Jin Ryu potentially coming back, and they're both throwing, those are two things that every team looks for at the deadline, right? Is a really good reliever and a solid starter. The Jays, you know what the Jays need more than anything else at the deadline in the second half? Is a monster bat that's hot hitting behind Guerrero. When Chapman was hitting in April, we had that, but you know, I think they need that one really good bat, like the Joey Votto type of thing, that would allow for Guerrero to get a little more.
The problem is the Reds are in first place by a game in the Central.
Yeah, I agree. It's someone threw that out a few weeks ago, but I look at it this way, guys. The three biggest guys the last 2 weeks in OPS: Springer, Guerrero, Bichette. And if that happens in the second half of the season, they're at the exact same place they were in 2015 and 16. And I think everybody forgets how magic the last half of 2015 was. And I think the Jays are going to win 13 out of 15. I think it's going to happen soon, and I think we're seeing the beginning of it right now. That's where I stand for the second half heading into the All-Star break. Sorley, you?
Well, I'm excited about this team. I know you're going to say, yeah, you're always excited about the team. I'm excited about the things I'm seeing. I'm excited about the teamwork. Dalton Varsho laying down a bunt like Brett was talking about. I think there's a lot to be excited about, and we're coming up to the dog days of summer, and I'm feeling the momentum. I'm just reading Mike Wilner tweeted that George Springer and his family, his wife, are having a baby, so he's just gone on the parental list. Looks like we got a rain delay in Detroit.
That's why we were going long, everybody.
Feeling good about everything to do with the Jays. And Brett, man, thanks so much for coming.
No problem.
I hope you didn't.
They can still win They can still win the division. It's going to be an upward haul, but they could.
I absolutely agree with Brett.
Yeah, and I think a move at the deadline could be simple as, I mean, remember when Ben Revere was picked up? That's when that team turned around. It wasn't because Tulo didn't do that much. Mm-hmm. It was Ben Revere, and having that extra. It could be an extra depth guy if it's an extra outfielder, and I don't know who it might be, but it might not be somebody you think of. It might be somebody from St. Louis who is just one of those scrappy players who he's a great fourth outfielder, or the next guy if somebody goes down.
We could put Arenado on the bench.
Well, guys, here's the thing though. Like, I know that they've been inconsistent, but where do the Jays need help? You know what I mean? Like, yes, 100 if he comes back, and Manoah, that gives you 6 starters, which I think is important because let's be honest, the Jays have been so lucky this year. Has a starter missed a start? I don't think so. That never happens. So we can't rest on that. But take a look at how good the starting pitching is, especially if you add more depth to it. Where's the weakness? Second base? Merrifield's playing second base. First base? Oh, Vladdy's having an off year? No, he's hitting 280 and he's going to have 30-some home runs. You've got Chapman playing down at third. Bichette's, I think he's playing better defense than he's ever played before at short. It's never going to be his thing. Do you want to mess with the outfield? Look, the catchers maybe aren't hitting now, but are you going to replace one of them? Where do the Blue Jays upgrade? This is a really good baseball team. It's a question of when they all start doing it together. But as long as the starting pitching holds, I think this team can win the division. I'm with you on this, Brett, because I only now, for the first time, are the Rays struggling. Every team drops 11 of 15. They haven't done that yet. And God bless Baltimore. I wish them awesome because I think that's a great team. I don't think they're ready yet either, and I don't think their pitching is going to hold. I think the Jays are going to win this division, and I think the Yankees are going to fade hard. I think it's going to be the Red Sox who make a run in the second half. I really do. I think that's a really good young team. I just don't think they have the pitching either. So, look, I'm being bullish, but the Jays are in the midst of a really hot streak right now. They're going to come out of the All-Star break playing hot, and I think Vladdy is going to put on a show at the Home Run Derby, but that's another episode.
Brett, thanks for joining us. Drew, I got to go. Everyone, thanks for watching, and let's have a good game this afternoon.
Brett, man, it was great to meet you. It's good to have you here. Take care, Andrew. We'll see you in a couple weeks. Peace, guys.
See you guys.
Cheers.
Bye.